It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Number 870-275-9799. We're broadcasting over at facebook.com/Conduit News. You guys feel free. You can go to conduitnews.com throughout the day. If you ever missed the broadcast, you want to go back and listen to the first hour, get the podcast. Go to conduitnews.com. You want to listen to this hour, you want to share it with friends, you can also, it's tweeted out. I tweet out the links as well. We tweet, I guess, at Paul Harrell 1776 tweets out the podcasts every time that we put them out there, every time we upload them. And then, of course, you can follow at Conduit News Twitter as well. It's all available. So if you let's say that a lot of you are maybe 7 o'clock listeners, and you can't get to the 6 o'clock hour, you go back and listen to it later. I have a feeling that our next guest, she may be one of the ones that likes to go back and listen to the 6 o'clock hour, maybe at 8 o'clock. Melissa Koller is with us. Melissa, welcome back.
Oh, Paul, you're outing me
I'm
to
sorry.
everyone. No, I am not a morning person.
Well, and that's why I know how valuable your time is, and I really appreciate you being on with me this morning. You are the operations manager at Koller Moving and Storage, so you know a thing or two about hauling, and so we really love to have you on as an authority here. Last time we had you on 2 weeks ago, we were talking about these new DOT regulations that came from an Obama-era law, and now it's going to maybe going to affect agricultural haulers and things like that. And I know that you've seen on Facebook where the Department of Transportation is saying, that's not the case. You have politicians saying everything's fine because there's been a lot of concerns raised. And so I wanted to have you on to give us an update. What can you tell us about where we are now?
No, there's no change, which is, is what actually made me honestly, Paul, I got quite angry. Last week I had a person that I met, Dane McCracken, and he's over there closer to you, closer to the eastern side of the state. He runs the biggest roping event in Arkansas, and he was at the ELD mandate meeting down in Dardanelle when I was, and we met there. And he tagged me in a post that he saw from State Senator Dave Wallace. And, the Senator Wallace was giving out information that the Arkansas Highway Police had evidently given out. Now, when I went to their website to see if they actually posted that information on their website, I couldn't find it anywhere. Evidently this is an email or a memo that went out to our state legislators so that the legislators could help the Highway Police disseminate information. But in that post, they're trying to tell us that that this law isn't going to affect the agricultural industry. That people that are hauling horses and cows and pigs don't need to worry about this law, and it's an absolute falsehood. I really don't. Honestly, I really do not like calling out our highway police with a falsehood, just because they impact my industry, my trucks all the time. But when it comes to this law, this statement is an absolute falsehood. The information being disseminated via social media and hauling publications is correct. People do need to be concerned, and the highway police are holding that we're all, those of us that are talking about it that aren't lawyers and that aren't policemen, we just don't know what we're talking about, and it's not gonna cause these people any headaches or any fines or whatnot, and that's just false.
Okay, so the law originated under MAP21. I'm trying to recap our first interview. MAP21 is this Obama-era law, and then I guess it went into effect last year. But the agriculture community they had a certain amount of days until it was going to go into effect here. And so is that correct? First of all, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the law went into effect for the transportation industry December 18, 2017. November 20, the agriculture industry received a 90-day exemption. So that's almost over.
Okay.
That's ending this month.
So is so the highway police, and by the way, what this requires is there are now weight restrictions and logging requirements potentially for people who are, hauling horses and things like that. That's where this comes in. So is the highway police saying that it's just not even a thing, or are they saying we're not going to enforce the new requirements? What are they saying exactly?
What I'm seeing from the Arkansas Highway Police, and I want to make this very clear, the Arkansas Highway Police is the Arkansas hand of the Department of Transportation. So they are an Arkansas entity, but federal transportation law is meted out by them on our highways and interstates. They are trying to say through their posts that they are not going to be focusing on these drivers.
Okay.
Now, here's my problem with that, Paul. For my business, I have to know what this 150 air mile radius is, because when my trucks are operating in state, there's a certain point where they have to be electronic logging, and the rest of the time we could be operating on a paper log when we're doing a local job. So it depends on how we're affected. So I have 3 maps, and I have a map that centers in Little Rock and shows me what 150 air mile radius is. I have one that centers in Fort Smith, which is where my business is located, and then I have one that's centered over in West Memphis. And the only way that I wouldn't need to worry about an electronic log in most of Arkansas is if I'm based right in Little Rock, because that 150 air mile radius extends all the way outside of the state in 4 ways. And when you take your protractor and make your circle, except for the corners of the northwest and the northeast corners, I could go throughout most of the state and be in a 150 air mile radius. But if I'm coming from Fort Smith, I get just past Little Rock, maybe around England, Arkansas or whatnot, and I have to start electronically logging. And if I'm coming from West Memphis, I can get just past Conway, and I better be electronically logging. So, now why does that matter? Well, if they don't pull me over, everybody's thinking, oh, it's no big deal, right? Well, there's these little bitty notations all throughout the law, the logging laws, not just this ELD mandate. Those of us in transportation, we know the logging laws, and we've been operating them under them forever. Since they were brought into inception. If you're supposed to be logging, Paul, if you're heavy enough to be logging, and you are not, whether that's paper or electronically, you're not logging, and you get yourself into a wreck, you are the at-fault vehicle. It doesn't matter who's at fault. If you were supposed to be logging, and and you weren't, or your hours of service were out, you were out of hours of service, the way they believe, just the way the law is written, is you weren't supposed to be there anyway. You were supposed to be pulled over on the side of the road. So that automatically makes you the at-fault driver.
Yeah, and just because,
okay?
and just because they say that they're not going to focus on it, I mean that doesn't make me happy. That's not the kind of government I want. Well, here's the law in the book, so we can throw the book at you if we want. But just trust us, we're not going to focus on it. And then, like you said, you get in an accident, and what are they going to do? We need some sort of certainty here. We have this Facebook post up from Senator Dave Wallace, and I know other people are putting this information out as well because I've seen it other places. And so here's the question. These days, the highway police and legislators are in a rare position of explaining to the public, he writes, that a new law does not affect them. So he's saying the highway police, he's disseminating the information. He writes, in this case, it's the farmers and people who haul cattle, horses, and other livestock. There have been concerns that they would be affected by new federal regulations geared for commercial truck drivers. The highway police have held meetings with the public and had individual discussions with legislators to assure them that nothing has changed in the enforcement of farm vehicles hauling livestock and rodeo animals. Now, first of all, let's stop there. You went to one of these public meetings. You said it was very unorganized in our last interview. So, which is it? And did they say that farm vehicles would be regulated in that meeting you went to?
Well, it was extremely disorganized. People came away not understanding the law, having tons of questions, being told, hey, just call our office and talk with us. Can you imagine how many people, with agriculture being the number one business in this state, they don't have the time to field all of our calls? Okay, they should have done a better job at the meetings. But what they're telling people in this industry is, hey, a covered farm vehicle is okay. Well, what is a covered farm vehicle? Well, it's a vehicle operated by a farm owner or operator, or one of their employees, or a family member of that farm owner and operator, being used to transport agricultural commodities, livestock, or machinery to and from the farm or ranch. But it has to be equipped with a special license plate, Paul. And when you go looking at what you're allowed to do when you have a farm tag on your vehicle, well, not everyone wants a farm tag on their vehicle that's moving their agricultural commodities, their livestock, or their machines, okay? The reality is that a farm tag is supposed to stay in state. You're not supposed to see an Arkansas, unless you live right on the border, you're not supposed to be seeing an Arkansas farm tag in Missouri or Oklahoma or Texas or Tennessee, okay? It's meant to stay close to the home. It's meant to stay within that 150 air mile radius. But when you really talk to farmers and you get to know these people don't have the ability to have one truck that never goes farther than 150 air miles from their home. Mm-hmm. They have reason to haul outside that radius, and not on what the law and the highway police and the legislators keep terming occasional.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you're hauling horses for rodeo, there's nothing occasional about it. But that means you have to operate under these laws. And these laws they're very detrimental to the livestock. Forget the driver, okay? Forget that he's got to put money into this system and that he's very possibly going to be fined on a regular basis because he's now having to operate under these. And what about the animal? Okay, the driver can drive, like we said last time. You can drive up to 8 hours straight, take a 30-minute break, and drive 4 more hours. That's 11 hours. That leaves you 3 hours to take bathroom breaks, get a little something to eat. But once that 14 hours is over, that rig must stay in place without moving more than 5 miles an hour at a time for 10 consecutive hours. Now, if you have traveled this country at all and used our interstate system, there are not places to unload livestock in a regular manner. Now, there's places here and there along the interstate as you go, especially, some of our plain states are good about it, where there's space to unload horses. And I'm only talking about horses here. Okay? But the regular truck stop, the regular place a person can pull off the road, there's no place for these animals to be offloaded. Can you imagine whether it's the coldest portion of our year or even the hottest portion of our year, a horse having to stand in a trailer for 10 hours because that electronic logging device says if you move, you've made an infraction that if the cops pull you over, they're going to fine you for driving illegally?
So,
because that's what it's saying.
Yeah, and so this is what's interesting. So, I mean, I'm looking back at this Facebook post from the highway police. In response to concerns from legislators, farmers, and cattlemen, highway police officials have assured state lawmakers that they have not stepped up enforcement of farm vehicles and livestock trailers. So how can they? How is that possible? I mean, this is a federal law? I mean, is federal funding at stake here if we don't enforce these laws?
Well, that's what I've been told. Is that if and the only thing evidently, it would take the governor saying don't enforce it. I mean, that's the only difference I've found. I guess ensuring us that they're not doing it is kind of like an underhanded way to go around and not say anything. I understand. I looked on the website. It's the first thing that they've got when you look at their regulations. They've got the farm vehicle regulation up there for everyone to see. Okay, but the farm vehicle regulation, when they talk about exemptions here for agricultural vehicles, it's hours of service exemption, and it literally lists that in Arkansas, our harvest season has been defined as 365 days a year. So we get an exemption for that, and that means that we get an hour of service exemption for drivers of agricultural commodities from the source of that commodity located within the 150 air mile radius. Well, all that means is that if you stay, if you're in Little Rock and just barely go outside the state, or, it just means it's the same exemption I have on my truck. I have an exemption that if I don't go past 150 miles, that I don't have to use my electronic lock. Now, I also have that kind of held on me that if I do that more than 8 days in a 30-day period, then I have to start logging, and that one's not listed here. But they still are having to know what their 150 air mile radius is, and once they pass that, their exemption goes away. Okay, and
this is,
and it's really ridiculous. Look, Arkansas Highway Police, listen. We drive all over. This whole state does. We are a rural state, and we drive. We don't live in New York City where people walk all the time, or even Dallas or Chicago, and people are using the L train. This state drives. Texas drives. Oklahoma drives. Missouri drives. These people drive, and they drive long distances, and they do it regularly because all of us want the exemption. We claim it on our tax. Okay? My daddy bought me horses when I was 8 years old, and he told me flat out because he was going to get a deduction on his taxes. When he claims that, he falls under this law if he's heavy enough. Mm-hmm. Now,
so would that mean
how does somebody get heavy enough?
Could they possibly
you buy a Ford Super Duty and you're heavy enough, and you buy a Ram truck 3500, you're heavy enough.
That's
all there is to it.
Possibly, could you see the DFNA, Department of Finance and Administration? If you get pulled over, for alleged violation, you say I'm not, I guess could they find things out if they look at your taxes? I've been told that may be in the future, and the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. They made very clear to me at the Dardanelle meeting, Paul, that they have questions, and one of them is, do you take a deduction for this on your taxes? If you do, you fall under the mandate.
Yeah, and so if you were to say no,
you may have a little exemption here or there, but these guys were the head of the group. Are you really telling me that every one of your officers understands this? And my biggest concern, and honestly, Paul, the agriculture, their biggest concern is the animal. And that's what most of these people don't get. We're stewards of our animals. We care about our animals. Is it ridiculous to put this on us as a person? Yes. Is it going to make our life so much more difficult? Absolutely. But whether it is a livestock hauler with a tractor trailer and he's hauling it from the livestock auction, or it is a person with a Ram truck 3500 and a 42-foot trailer and 4 horses on there, and he's going to the next quarter horse show, we care about our animals. And using these hours of service and then requiring these rigs to stay on the road puts our animals' lives at risk. And there's so many implications. If it's a livestock hauler, he's taking those animals to be slaughtered. If the animal's dead when he's get there, they just lost money. They can't slaughter the animal.
So we have got, this is certainly government overreach. We're talking with Melissa Koller, operations manager at Koller Moving and Storage. I have one more question, then we have to go. The highway police, they are saying this. Okay, so you've obviously raised some serious issues here, as you did in your last interview. Highway police, though, in response to your first interview, says, if you occasionally load a horse on a trailer to participate in a livestock show or rodeo, nothing has changed, according to the head of the highway police. Is that a true statement? Nothing has changed?
I don't believe so. Everything has changed. Because, look, those of us that go out and rodeo, our kids' junior rodeo, I'm a 4-H leader. I have 4-Hers that travel to jackpots with their goats and their sheep. It's absolutely changed. If you don't know the law and you're found breaking the law, you're going to incur large fines, whether you do break that law in the state of Arkansas or it's Oklahoma or Texas, okay, because it's federal law, point blank.
Well,
and I'm calling for our legislators to start making a difference for us, Paul. No, this is not an Arkansas law, but you cannot tell me that the voices of our state elected representatives won't be louder than my voice. Okay?
Exactly.
Now, maybe maybe my horn's tooting a little more right now because I'm on your show, but I'm not going to get Tom Cotton to pick up when I call his D.C. office like my state legislator is going to get.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Yes, Tom and I have met, we've shook hands, but he's not going to recognize my name. And our state are those that are in the Farm Bureau with the equine industry and the cattle industry, and our governor and our legislators have the bigger voice. And it's time they quit listening to the highway police saying nothing's changed and start listening to their constituency. We're mad, we're concerned, and we want their help getting this fixed.
Melissa Koller, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us, and we'll keep everybody updated. Keep me updated on any developments that you hear. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Good morning to you, folks. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.